Are we now live? Hello. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee of Portsmouth City Council, held in the Guildhall. I'm Gerald Vernon-Jackson. I'm chair of this committee. Can we just go through introductions first? So, members of the Planning Committee, Shah, do you want to start?
Good morning. Councillor Shah for Colsham and Wimmering.
Judith Smythe, Vice Chair of this committee and elected councillor for St Jude Ward.
Good morning. Mary Vallely, Councillor Vallely for Colsham and Wimmering.
Good morning. Councillor Derek North for Colsham and Wimmering.
Councillor Cordy, Hilsey Ward.
Good morning, Chair. Councillor Dorrington, Eastern and Craneswater.
Peter Candlish, Eastern and Craneswater.
Hugh Mason, Councillor for St Jude Ward.
Dave Ashmore, one of the councillors for Flatton, and I'm standing in for Councillor Chris Atwell.
Okay, now let's then do other... Oh, Ray, are you on the committee? No, thought not. Unless you... Yes, well, that's a good start, Councillor Ashmore. Shall we then go around the officers and then people who've come to speak for us?
Good morning, I'm Juliette Gill. I'm the Principal Planning Solicitor at Portsmouth City Council.
Hello? Yes, please. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Sarah Roberts, agent for the application at 58 to 60 Great Southey Street.
Good morning, Richard Pearce. I'm the applicant for 58 to 60 Great Southey Street.
Lovely.
Ben Christian, Vale Williams. I'm the planning consultant for the all-electric bus depot at Hilsey.
Excellent. And I think your colleague next door to you is not speaking, but he's just here to keep an eye.
From First Group, yeah.
Lovely. And the group in front?
Alex King, planning agent for the scheme for Flathouse Road.
Lovely.
Mike Lamplow, head of property for the applicant of Flathouse Road.
Lovely. And again, two colleagues here to keep an eye. At the back row, Carrie-Anne.
Carrie-Anne Wells, agent for Applecore, representing 4 of the items today.
Lovely. And again, you have two colleagues with you. Ray.
Councillor Rowan Den, doing deputations on Chichester Road and Laburnum Grove.
Lovely, thank you.
Karen Martin from Democratic Services.
Yeah, you need to speak into it, Ed.
Edward Chapman, Sales and Planning Officer for this committee.
Ed Lee, Senior Planning Officer.
Okay, and I think if we got Will at the back from Democratic Services here to keep an eye on us. Now, we have had issues and we're slightly late because we have issues with Wi-Fi and we hope it's up and running. So the apologies we've got is for Councillor Chris Atwell, who is down with COVID, and Dave Ashmore is here in his stead. Colleagues, any declarations of members' interests? Mr. Councillor Candlish.
Chair, I'm the Cabinet Member for Transport, and some of the applications have an obvious transport link, but I see no prejudicial interest and no reason at this moment to exclude myself.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Simpson, you joined us. Would you like to say who you are?
I am Councillor Simpson, Hilsey Ward.
Thank you.
Speeding a deputation for the new centre.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, colleagues. Okay, the next thing is the minutes of the meeting on the 10th of July. Colleagues, are you happy with these minutes? Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, then let's move on to the applications. Let's do vacant land at Flathouse Quay, at Flathouse Road, item 4 on the agenda.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. This application is for the construction of a self-storage building with associated access, parking, landscaping and associated works on land at Flathouse Road, as shown on screen in front of you. The application site is that bounded by a red line, and the aerial photograph on the right shows that it is currently vacant, unused land. The site extends to just over half a hectare and is currently used for storage and car parking. To the west is Flathouse Road, which is where the access will be for vehicles and pedestrians. To the east is the Mile End Conservation Area. Let me try and get the pointer up. So this is the Mile End Conservation Area here, the other side of Mile End Road, M275, which incorporates a terrace of Grade 2 listed buildings, including the Charles Dickens Museum. In terms of how the site looks at the moment, so that is an existing building that is to be demolished and replaced with the glass box with the aircraft in it. This bottom picture is the one that shows where the storage unit will be. Here's some further views from Flathouse Road, existing elevations, and then some views taken on Mile End Road, courtesy of Google, entering and leaving the city. The proposed building, shown in elevations here, has a length at the east front elevation of some 42.8 metres, a south elevation of 42.26 metres, a width at the west of 42.3 metres, and the north elevation of the box is about 8 metres. The new building is to be 16.2 metres in height, and the glass box element is 17.3 metres in height. As I'm sure you're familiar, that part of the city is characterised by a range of fairly utilitarian industrial buildings, including the border control post and the multi-storey for the ferry port. By way of comparison, the border control post building is 15.6 metres in height. The glass box element of the building, so these just continue showing the elevations and the wider street scene view. You have Morrison's down here, and that building by comparison is 10 metres in height. So as I said, the storage unit building is 16.2 metres and the glass box extends to 17.3 metres. Site plan here showing the access off Flathouse Road, vehicular access, turning circle for HGVs and lorries, etc., to back into the loading bays, staff and visitor car parking here. The storage unit, which is on 3 levels, here, and then the reception area, atrium with the suspended Harrier jump jet here. During the application process, the glass box was pulled back from the road by 2 metres. The glass box element is now 5.5 metres from the back edge of the footway, and the main building is between 19 and 25 metres back from the back edge of the footway. That's the floor plan showing the intermediate level and the roof level. The intermediate level has storage units within it and a viewing balcony to view the jet in the atrium. The roof level is to have PV panels on it. In terms of materials, the building is to be finished in a profiled metal sheet of differing angles to give it some visual interest, and with a stack bond brick slip elevation here. The glass box is a glass box. So here's some CGIs provided by the applicant to show the view you would see of the building when leaving the city northbound. Relevant to this, you will note from the report that there has been planning history on this site, set out in section 5 of the report on page 12, an application back in 2017. I have an image of that scheme here. Which was described as construction of 2 industrial units, 1 ship-themed, incorporating bow, satellite and 15-inch gun sculpture for B1, B8 uses. This was refused in September 2017 and the subsequent appeal dismissed. This application has arisen, there has been extensive pre-application discussions on this application prior to its submission. And hence the application you see in front of you. There are essentially no objections from technical consultees. With regard to publicity, 27 neighbours were consulted, 1 letter of objection received, concerned with the issues raised in paragraph 7.4 of the officer report. With regard to the planning considerations, these are set out in section 8 of the officer report on pages 14 through to 21, concerning the principle of development, which is found to be acceptable. The site is currently in employment use and will maintain that use. It's in compliance with both the NPPF, the 2023 version of the NPPF, noting that a revised draft NPPF was published yesterday for consultation. So, as with any newly introduced planning policy documents, very limited weight can be given to that at this stage. The consultation period ends on the 24th of September. I would add that, if anything, it strengthens and further promotes the use of sites already in employment use for ongoing employment use, having had a quick look at it this morning. So, as set out in paragraph 8.6, the principle is acceptable. With regard to the previous application, this is a substantially different, materially different scheme to that proposed then. With regard to the design, as I noted earlier in the presentation, that side of Mile End Road is characterised by a range of industrial, commercial buildings of fairly utilitarian style and appearance. This building has been designed to attempt to be more visually appealing by use of the materials and soft and hard landscaping. Concerns were raised early on in the application with regard to the palette of materials, and those have been changed to the ones you see in front of you now. I'll go back to elevation drawings.
Edward, can you presume that we've read the report?
Yes, I can. Okay, thank you, Councillor. Moving on, other material considerations, impact on heritage assets, all considered acceptable. Highway impacts, reviewed by the Highway Authority and considered acceptable. Employment use I've covered already. Biodiversity, landscaping and trees, this application was submitted before the mandatory biodiversity net gain requirements. Notwithstanding that, landscaping is proposed, and as are bird boxes. The application is apologies. So on the basis of all that, the officers recommend that planning permission be granted subject to the conditions set out in paragraph 12.1. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Edwin.
I should also add, Councillor, there is a SMAT item,
yeah.
but as you will see, note that does not propose any change to the recommendation.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much indeed. We've got 2 deputations. Mr. King, Mr. Lamplow, who would like to go first? You can't move the mic. You can't move the little box, but you can move the microphone.
Thank you, Councillor. Am I ready to go?
Yep.
Perfect. I'll be less than 6 minutes, so you'll be pleased to hear that. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address members and to present the merits of this scheme. I'm the planning consultant, as I've said, working for the development. The benefits for the scheme and its delivery will be discussed by my client in their presentation, which sets out their history in Portsmouth and the significant opportunity that this presents them as a company. I will not seek to duplicate his presentation, because he'll do it better than I will, and as such, the purpose of me presenting to members is to discuss the planning policy and the history of the proposal. Historically, the site was allocated as land forming part of safeguarded land for highway improvements, and as noted within the officer's report, the previous application was refused due to the loss of the safeguarded land. An application has subsequently been submitted and approved in relation to Portsmouth City Centre regeneration, and this application excludes Flathouse Road as it is outside of the red line. And map 9, which is referred to in policy PCS4, will be superseded by PLP6 of the Portsmouth Local Plan. As such, the principle of development should be considered as being acceptable. With regards to the history again, and in addressing the previous reasons for refusal, as noted by the officer, we've worked hard with the Council's officers, both pre-application and post-submission, to present a scheme that we believe addresses all the previous issues and ensures that it is respecting the setting of the heritage assets on the opposite side of the motorway. We've amended elements and sought to work collaboratively with officers, and while the scheme has a single letter of representation, which is noted, I believe that the officer's report has clearly addressed all of the issues that have been queried. As can be seen from the officer's report, all of the consultee responses raise no issue other than to request conditions, and I hope that members are in agreement with the officers and acknowledge the opportunity that this presents to provide a significant improved employment use, which itself helps to improve local economic conditions. It is within the allocated employment and mixed-use site of the emerging local plan, provides significant suitable amounts of parking and access in line with the Council's requirements. Thank you very much for your time, members.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr Lamplow.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Mike Lamplow, Head of Property for the applicant Vanguard Holdings. Vanguard is a family-owned business, and in 4 days' time we'll be celebrating our 60th anniversary. We purchased the Flathouse Road site in 1989 to support our industrial moving and storage services. It was ideal for us to be close to our key customers in the port. When we withdrew from the industrial moving market to concentrate on storage services, this site was too small for redevelopment. In 2016, we purchased the neighbouring site, and this gave us the critical mass we needed, and ultimately to the application you see before you today. The demand for self-storage is split into two groups, private and business customers, and in particular is very attractive to the latter. The title self-storage can create a misleading image. Whilst domestic storage is a key segment, our stores are also mini business and logistical hubs for commercial customers. In common with many cities, the availability of small industrial units in Portsmouth is in short supply. A recent search identified only 3 industrial units on the market of less than 1,000 square feet. This shortage is likely to be having a detrimental impact on the city's economy. We expect about half of our customers will be businesses. Proximity to the city centre will be ideal for final mile logistics. This will be our second new build working with local architects, HGP. They understand the city and are perhaps best known for their work on the Spinnaker Tower. We don't commission bland industrial sheds. We feel this building has strong architectural merit. We had a positive pre-app. This application has been refined via dialogue with officers, and as mentioned already, there are no objections from internal consultees. It won't have escaped your notice that we have a prominent feature within the building, a Sea Harrier. In each of our previous new builds, we have created a focal point by having an aircraft on display. This will be our 4th such display, and for Portsmouth, the home of the Royal Navy, it could only be the Sea Harrier. We are fortunate in that we have been able to acquire one of the Navy's last operational aircraft. It's in excellent condition, and we will display the Harrier as it was on the day it was retired from active service. We will be creating a landmark building at the gateway to the city, and at the same time making tribute to the proud record between the Sea Harrier and the Royal Navy. To summarise our application, we will be making productive use of a brownfield site, a landmark building, gateway to the city, making a connection with the Royal Navy, a facility to help to address the shortage of industrial and commercial space in Portsmouth, an opportunity to stimulate startups and other businesses to create employment and economic growth in the city. Vanguard are a clean, quiet operator, no unsociable hours, no noise, no trucks based on the site. Our store will always be staffed. We do not operate out of hours. We are owner-operators who take great pride in what we do. We're delighted that our existing stores have had over 3,500 Google reviews with an average score of 4.97. And finally, having been storage providers for 60 years, if our application is approved, we expect to be providing storage solutions here for at least the next 60, although admittedly I might not be around myself to see all of that. Thank you for your time and consideration this morning.
Thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, any questions? Councillor Smythe.
Two short questions of clarification. One is that our planning officer talked about bird boxes. I don't think many birds nest high up in roofs, but swifts do, and swift boxes have a particular part to play in keeping the swift population up. There's proven that the more swift boxes, the more swifts. I hope you mean swift boxes, and I hope the applicant would take notice of the advice from the Swift Association. Could you confirm whether that's the case or not?
Thank you for your question. Yes, I mean, condition 15 is just a heading at the moment in the report and says bird boxes. That can be amended to specifically specify swift boxes.
I think it needs to be. There was a very fine exhibition on at the City Museum recently where that case was made very, very strongly. And indeed our local plan requires swift boxes on high buildings. It doesn't talk about bird boxes.
You're very welcome to the ones we have. We've had them for 5 years and the Swifts haven't gone anywhere near them. Me and my neighbours all bought them. So I would... the swift boxes, you're right, are very specific and would exclude other birds. I think if there's a mixture, that would be good, of which some might be swift boxes, but some might be others.
Let's take proper ornithological advice, because I hear otherwise. The second question is, you talked of viewing platforms to see the aircraft. I presume that would be to see the underside of it, and who can get in to see it?
Councillor, thank you. The plans show a viewing platform at the sort of intermediate level within the glass box here for people to view the aircraft sort of, and I'm looking at the applicant here, presumably sort of halfway up its height. If I go back to the elevation that best shows that. So yes, so a viewing platform, balcony, looks like it's available at several levels within the glass box, so you can view it from different angles. I might just ask...
Mr. Lamplow, do you want to enlighten us?
Thank you. If I could pick up on both of those points. We will be delighted to have swift boxes. We put swift boxes at our previous scheme, and as the councillor pointed out, they are attracted to high buildings. So we'd be delighted to accommodate Swift. On the issue of the balconies, we haven't worked out the detail of the aircraft orientation at this stage. We will have viewing balconies inside. Indeed, we have the same at our other locations where we got aircraft on display. And yes, we're very, very happy to have anyone to visit to view. And in particular, there is a strong contingent of aircraft enthusiasts that frequently knock on our door, have a coffee, look at the aircraft and have a chat, and we'd be delighted if that was the case here.
Mr Lamptey, my understanding looking at the plans was that the plane can rotate within its glass box, is that correct?
That's certainly one of the considerations. We haven't worked out that detail. From an engineering point of view, I personally would love it if we could do that. To put it on the spindle, not rotate it like a barber's pole, but perhaps we could do a rotation once an hour or something like that, so that passing people have an opportunity to see different orientation. Although I do stress we haven't worked out that detail, and that's something we need to come back to in final design.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mason.
In the conditions, there is a note on contaminated land. Is this land seriously contaminated, and would this have any effect upon the construction?
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just trying to find the response from the Contaminated Land Officer. All they've said, and all I have in front of me on the report, is no objection subject to conditions. So yes.
Ed, can you use your microphone?
Noticing the conditions, my question is concerning whether this is a major consideration on this site.
All I can say, Councillor, is I think on the basis of their no objection response and their recommendation that 2 conditions be attached requiring pre-commencement mitigation and prior to occupation verification, I would assume that their concerns are not sufficiently serious to warrant refusing planning permission in this case.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, comments, colleagues? I'm happy to propose the officer's recommendation for approval. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Mary. Councillor Mary Valley seconded. Are there any other proposals? No. Can I therefore go to the vote? Those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Valley, so that you have a microphone of your own, you can detach the next door one by pushing the little silver bit down and nick it. It needs brute force and ignorance, and I can provide both. You sure? Okay. Councillor Mason has stolen one for you. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
That's all right. We like to look after you. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, moving on to the next application, the News Centre, London Road, Hilsea. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Okay, are we Ed or Edward? Edward, yes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair.
Before I just thought we should say thank you to colleagues in planning, because what came for us for approval just then was significantly better than that had gone beforehand, and I think it's a real compliment to people in planning that you've managed to get such major changes to make it a much better scheme. So from my point of view, I think it's important to recognise when things go right.
Thank you, Chair, for those kind words. I will make sure the case officer who's currently on holiday will receive them in due course. Right, moving on. So this application at the News Centre, London Road, Hilsea, is for a new bus depot. It's being presented to Planning Committee as it represents a significant major development. There are no SMAT items to report on this application. So the site is shown edged red on the slide in front of you. The applicant also owns the land to the north, edged in blue, adjacent to Military Road. The site is approximately 1.75 hectares or 4.86 acres in area, and was formerly occupied by the news centre, which was demolished in early 2024, as shown on this aerial photograph. This was the news centre building here and the print works behind. The area is well, these are the photographs from when the news centre building was still in place. So you have a view from Military Road, a view from London Road, the main entrance from London Road, and a view of the news centre building from London Road itself. Further photographs of the interior of the site showing the Printworks building, which has been demolished. And again, and then further views from the wider area from London Road. The site is currently hard standing now, all buildings having been demolished, and the application is for the first group to accommodate up to 100 buses, single and double-decker, on the site, and will replace the current depot on London Road. The proposed development is set out in detail within paragraphs 6.1 to 616 of the officer report, and so I will assume that, noting the Chair's previous comments, I will assume that you have read those. Two key points to remember to point out: the site will be predominantly hard standing, with two buildings proposed, one as offices and workshop and the other for bus maintenance and cleaning. So here's the building fronting onto London Road, and then the other maintenance building to the north here. The area shaded pink, red is the location of the gantries, which will house the EV charging points for the buses. There have been no technical objections from consultees. Yes, sorry, this plan shows it in more detail. So the existing entrance is maintained off London Road and will be left in, left out only. The current depot, I gather, is further to the north up London Road, about 200 metres away. The site layout comprises the depot building, the bus parking behind, going to the rear of the site, the service building where buses will be cleaned and maintained, staff parking within the boundary here, and then at the front of the site will be EV charging points available for local businesses and private car owners to charge their electric vehicles. The buildings are single-storey mono-pitched roofs. And the gantries will be, as the name suggests, will be overhead charging. It will house overhead charging cables and so on to avoid any potential trip hazards and so on of cables trailing along the ground. I understand the cables will be on sort of recoil systems so that once disconnected from the bus, they will be withdrawn onto a reel above the bus, so that there will be no loose cables trailing around. As I said previously, the existing site will be maintained off London Road, and the access off Bowpole pronunciation, Bopulm Road, would be used as an emergency access and exit only. There are 37 designated car parking spaces, with 3 allocated as disabled and 12 electric vehicle charging points just within the western boundary of the site, made available for public and local business charging. 16 cycle parking spaces also proposed, with accompanying facilities, changing rooms and showers, etc. A 2.8 metre high acoustic fence is proposed along the southern boundary. This plan shows the elevations of the proposed buildings and streetscapes. And as viewed from Arras Road, the proposed buildings and bus parking. This is the elevations and floor plan of the proposed depot building, mono-pitch roof located to the west of the site, and provide office accommodation and for on-site staff and a workshop area for bus maintenance. This is the service lane building, which would be located to the north of the site and would house the bus wash, chassis wash and a quick fix bay, repairing broken headlights, etc., other running repairs. Further to a question that was raised at briefing yesterday, the water consumption, regarding water consumption in the bus wash area, I'm advised that the bus wash would be recycled water, and the chassis wash would be rainwater gathered from rainwater harvesting. There are also some small ancillary buildings proposed on the site in connection with the electrical network required. So significant soft landscaping is proposed with robust levels of new planting, particularly to the frontage along London Road. The development would necessitate the removal of 4 Category B trees of moderate quality and 3 Category C trees of low quality due to access widening and circulation within the site. This will, however, be mitigated by the planting with 10 replacement trees. Overall, officers consider that the proposal will deliver a significant improvement in the site's ecological value through the introduction of an uplift in tree planting and soft landscaping. Full landscaping details are to be secured by condition if planning permission is granted. As I previously mentioned, a 2.8 metre high acoustic fence is proposed on the southern boundary. On the northern boundary of the site, with the 295 Battery Royal Artillery Army Reserve, and the northern site, a 2.4 metre high Paladin fence is proposed. In terms of materials, both the depot and service buildings will be constructed in brickwork slip cladding to complement the character of the other buildings in the area, with contemporary recycled plastic cladding and solar panels mounted on the roof. And this is just meant to show an indicative materials palette. These are some shots of the proposed service lane building, the overhead gantries, etc. And this is the CGI of the depot building as viewed from London Road, and a sort of aerial view across the site from London Road, showing the bus gantries there. The material planning considerations are as set out in the report. there was one representation in support and 4 objecting to the proposal for the reasons set out in paragraph 8.5. And as I say, as set out in the very detailed officer report within your agenda pack, the officers conclude that the proposal is considered to be in accordance with the development plan as a whole, delivering and would cause less than substantial harm to designated heritage assets, predominantly within Hilsey Lines, and would also provide public benefits. It's also considered to, and the public benefits in terms of sustainability through enabling...
I'm afraid, Mr. Gentleman, I'm going deaf. I'm getting old. I didn't hear those last comments.
Edward, if you could be a little louder.
Sorry, Councillor. I'm just going to have a sip of water, if that's okay. So to conclude, can you hear me, councillors? Yeah, to conclude, the application is in accordance with national and local policy, would deliver significant public benefit through enabling the first group to achieve and deliver an all-electric bus fleet, which is a significant move towards zero carbon for both the company and public transport service for Portsmouth. The development will also enhance local businesses being able to charge electric vehicles during the day, balances the need for an improved public transport and service and sustainability and air quality benefits against the site's setting and character. It brings social, economic, environmental and benefits to the area. The buildings have been carefully designed, taking into inspiration from the surrounding and historic context of the site, and therefore planning permission is recommended to be granted subject to the conditions set out on page 49 and as section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Christian.
Chair and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm speaking in support of the planning application before you for the construction of an all-electric bus depot. I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant and future operator First Hampshire and Dorset Limited, who are here with me today and are part of the First Group, which operate nationally. This application before you today is recommended for approval as outlined within your officer's comprehensive committee report. We are pleased to read that the officer, consultees and hopefully members of this committee see that the proposed all-electric bus depot is a significant enhancement towards the Council's aims of supporting sustainable development and climate change mitigation that also brings a wealth of substantial benefits to the public. This application follows detailed highway pre-application discussions, planning pre-application discussions and public engagement that has resulted in no objections from consultees, a development that accords with the local plan and a development that is being specifically promoted within allocation policy PLP 14 of the new local plan currently out for consultation. Transport and travel arrangements have been assessed and considered acceptable through in-depth discussions both at pre-application and during determination, which are supported by a robust transport assessment and travel plan that have justified the site as a suitable location for a sustainable transport hub. The proposed development is considered of good design with robust areas of landscaping that achieves a substantial biodiversity net gain figure of 49.32%, which is well beyond the national requirement of 10%. Neighbouring amenity has been carefully considered through the design via input from noise, light and air quality consultants. A report on each accompanies this planning submission and has resulted in no objection responses from the relevant consultees. The proposed development includes the provision of on-roof solar panels and achieving BREEAM Excellent in design. In addition to this, the proposal includes not only electric charging for buses, but also EV charging provision for staff, visitors, the public and local business vehicles. This makes the development highly sustainable. Beyond site-specific sustainability, the development will also enhance a citywide sustainability through transfer of buses to an electric fuel source, which not only provides cleaner air throughout the city, but also contributes meaningfully towards the Council's citywide aims of supporting sustainable transport and climate change mitigation. In view of your officer's very positive committee report, the accordance of the proposed development with current and proposed local policies and the substantial benefits to the public, we respectfully request that the application be approved as per your officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. While I did request this to come to Planning Committee, my deputation today is written as a neutral, though I feel it's appropriate to give some backstory to this application. As many of you know, the bus depot proposed is being built on the old news centre site, a building, in my and many expert opinions, was a great example of post-war 1960s architecture. When we were first consulted by First Bus, we made our views known that we weren't against the depot being built here, but we had concerns and reservations about what would be removed from the site. The main two were the new centre facade and the pond in the front, as it has yearly nesting moorhen birds, as well as herons that visit the pond regularly. We also felt that the residents should be kept up to date during the entire process, from application demolishment to demolishment, and what that would consist of. In our meeting, there was a possibility the facade could stay. However, First Bus decided to submit the application for complete demolishment without notifying any councillors or residents. Not the ideal start for something that should benefit the community, environment and city. Looking at the application today, it is disappointing that the news facade that we lobbied to protect was knocked down in vain, as the new bus depot has not even been built where the building stood. We were all convinced at the time that losing it had its benefits. Hillsey will have a state-of-the-art electric bus depot. However, it's now obvious that Hillsey's landmark was knocked down just so the land could be sold for profit. I do hope First Bus will communicate closely and listen to residents of RAS Road, who will be mostly affected by the build. I mention this as the demolishment resulted in noise pollution, vibration damage, and at one point, as reported by the Portsmouth News, glass falling on the highway pavement with no safety measures in place. Coming back to the application, my main concern with this application is the Category B trees. Having sat on the planning committee myself, I appreciate the importance of clear documents. Only a few weeks ago, there was clear instruction from the chair that plans should be clearly presented to the committee. I want to provide the committee with this drawing and images. So the images are essentially of the trees that are being proposed. To be fair, there's actually only one small tree that is actually in the way of their entrance. But I also supplied with an old picture from the 70s, which actually shows, even though those houses are not there anymore, the trees remained. So the trees were there before the new centre was built, and therefore I don't see why they should be cut down now. So can we continue here? I want to, sorry, I'm just a bit lost there. All the details on 9.73 of your document. Removal of 4 Category B trees, 2 sycamore, 1 Monterey cypress, and 1 white beam tree. And the map clearly states, this is one of the reasons why I gave you the map, so you could actually see where it says the trees are going to be removed. It says some of the existing trees will be retained around the entrance, but obviously some are going to be cut down. The map obviously clearly shows, the old picture clearly shows that the trees have always been there, even when other things have been knocked down. It might also be worth asking how many employees will be at the site compared to the amount of parking spaces provided, because notoriously there's always been a lot of cars from actually bus drivers that have parked around the residential road. So if this is going to be a building that's going to have a lot of employees, hopefully the amount of parking spaces accommodates the new site instead of putting strain on surrounding roads. I'm not against this application being approved today. However, I do feel this committee should consider protecting these trees as part of the approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Councillor Simpson. Colleagues, questions? Councillor Cantlish.
A question on the acoustic barrier. So there's an acoustic barrier put on the southern side for the purposes of protecting noise pollution going out to the residents there. The one on the north was described as by you as a paladin. What does that mean? And is there any noise protection? Because it's not yet clear what is going to be put up on the far side of that barrier.
Thank you for your question. Apologies, I'm feeling very faint, and I've actually asked Ian McGuire to come and take over from me, but I'll try and
Ed, Edward, if you're not well, go, and Ian is here.
Right. The noise issue is discussed in the report on page, in paragraphs 942 to 946.
I wonder if the applicant is able to help us about what the northern fencing is and the barriers there.
I'm also looking up the noise report, so
Okay.
I'm doing the same as Ed.
Okay, so we'll wait and see if we can get an answer. Councillor Smythe, do you want to come up with your question?
I notice there's been a battery of advice taken from people about air pollution and traffic and all sorts of things. I'm actually concerned about drainage from that bus washing area. How's the applicant going to, when operating the washing of buses, going to they say that they're going to recycle water to use, so it won't take an excessive burden off the water supply. But they don't talk about where the water's going to run off into, except it's mentioned that it's going to go into the sewers. My question is, how are we going to be absolutely sure that dirty water is not going to run either onto the pavements, into the street and so forth? And secondly, how can we be sure it doesn't pollute the Hillsea lines and go into the sea at that point? And, yeah, I'm not satisfied with the detail of that reassurance. Thank you.
Okay. Any joy on the fencing, colleagues?
Yeah, so
Thanks, Ben.
The noise barrier, the acoustic barrier, is only along the southern boundary. I'm obviously not a acoustician, so I assume therefore that is there because that is the closest proximity to residential development. Residential development in the north is obviously significantly further away, so it must have been felt that a noise barrier was not required.
But if development comes forward for that vacant land with residential development, that will need to be addressed at that time.
Correct.
Chair, if I may assist,
Thanks, Ian.
discussion. Obviously, the agent of change principle applies. They must assess, as an application now, the impacts on existing land uses. There is residential properties to the south. That must be fully mitigated. A condition is imposed to manage that. The acoustic report obviously looks at that and has deemed that a fence can manage to do that. If and when the site comes forward, in the emerging plan we are seeking residential development on that northern parcel. If and when it does come forward, it would be for that development to ensure its new residents are adequately protected. Effectively, they're the ones paying for the fence rather than as then would be in this scenario, existing bus depot. To turn to the drainage question, if you wish, obviously a condition is imposed to ensure that there is a surface water drainage scheme secured. That will be discussed obviously by our drainage experts within the council. If they feel attenuation is required as part of the process, that can be included within the scheme. Otherwise, if the volume of waters are adequate, they can be passed directly into a surface water drain into the sewage system. It is obviously for the Water Management Act to manage the flow of wastewater, whether that be from commercial or residential places, not the Planning Act to do so. So we manage the risk of surface water flooding through appropriate attenuation if it is necessary. I don't believe that is the case in here, because obviously we've got a large site that is covered with hard standing, so pretty much everything they're doing is going to make an improvement upon that. So the small amount of additional water they're piping on to do cleaning will be managed through either their own internal recycling or indeed attenuation and management release through into the sewer system, which again would be part inevitably of any connection agreement they will have to reach with the foul water statutory undertaker.
Implement that. I'm concerned with the fact that the water that is going to come off cleaning the bottom of buses will be full of little rubber particles from roads and all things that actually we don't want to be polluting certainly natural water courses, but also is pretty nasty stuff actually. And are you satisfied that that will be adequately dealt with.
Through you, Chair, yes, with your answer. Surface water drainage systems aren't just volume, tank, pump. They include necessary filtration, either using natural suds or indeed chemical and mechanical filtration if there are risks. And certainly for these sorts of sites, you would normally be more concerned with oil interception from vehicles. These are electric vehicles, so you've got certainly a different set of pollutants to manage, but obviously this is normal practice when you're putting in drainage on commercial sites. There will still be, obviously, staff cars and things that may not be fully electric, so whenever you're draining hard standing, you would have to manage the reasonable expectation of pollutants that you know are likely to be on that hard standing, and you would build that into your drainage system, and that's what obviously we were looking to improve under the proposed planning condition.
Count the lack of fossil fuels in the process, but I do think that what is accumulated by micro rubbers that come off the roads is pretty nasty as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dorrington, Councillor Mason, Councillor Vallely.
Thank you, Chair. My question is with regards to the back of the site. There seems to be provisions for a large storage battery and for 2 transformers and some main electrical incomers. So I'm assuming there's quite a large volume of electric coming into the site for the charging facilities. However, it's my understanding that the site is in a flood zone too. So is that an area of concern, having such large batteries within a flood zone?
The flood, so the environment, yes, the flood map, the EA flood map shows the site is located within 2 and 3. The flood risk assessment submitted with the application has been reviewed by both the Environment Agency and Coastal Partners, who've raised no objection to the proposal. The finished floor levels are to be would be within a flood height, and sorry, Councillor, could you repeat?
So I think, Edward, we're looking probably for a yes or a no answer, that is this a risk or not? Is that right, Nick?
To assist, is it a risk? Yes. Is it a risk that should withhold plan permission? No. So the design obviously needs to properly mitigate. Most of the city is, of course, at some degree of flood risk. The design, of course, needs to properly mitigate that, as Edward has referred to. Finished floor levels are a key way of mitigating that. So if there is any water passing over the site, it wouldn't interrupt those flows. But flood management, because it's a single occupied commercial site, we're not putting people at risk and having to do evacuations, etc. It's how will you ensure that piece of infrastructure is protected in the event that there is an inundation of the site. A flood risk management plan will include that. There's a flooding condition. We'd want to see how they're going to manage that. It might be deployable flood defences, sandbags, to deal with an abnormally high overtopping level, but the design, including that finished floor level, would be set at a level that means those risks are manageable within. Fundamentally, if the area is so flooded that you're coming up into the transformers, you're not going to be able to get buses in and out anyway, so it's not about the use of the site, it's just the damage to that equipment, which obviously then becomes a management issue for the owner of the site.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mason.
Although somewhat tangential to the planning permission in front of us, London Road is exceptionally busy. It's a very busy road. Can I assume that the ingress will be from the north and the egress will be to the south?
Yes.
Yes, Councillor, I can answer that question. It is left in, left out only, the access on
Okay.
London Road.
Councillor Vallely.
What about Russell's trees?
The Russell's Memorial Tree.
So the tree officer has reviewed the application. He's not objected to it, subject to replacement planting. Category B trees aren't the best trees, so they're given slightly less weight, but obviously any loss of trees is a negative. We think it's outweighed by the positives of this application.
So
Okay.
there will be some replacements?
There are 10 replacements for the 7 lost. Okay, Councillor Cordy.
Thank you, Chair. Do we know whether the reversing alarms on the buses will disengage after 11 p.m? I know at the moment there are a dozen or so buses on the site, and come midnight we can hear beeps echoing through the neighbourhood.
I understand you have an answer, Mr. Christian.
Yes, they disengage at 7 p.m.
And they come back on again at what time?
6 a.m.
6 a.m.
Oh, thank you.
Councillor Cordy, is that happy? You happy with that? Lovely.
There also shouldn't be any reversing in the morning because they leave, obviously.
Okay, excellent. Councillor Candlish and then Councillor North.
So I had a further development on the tree question, which is we are losing some large trees, but the application, if I'm right, talks about standard trees as being put in, the replacement trees. Is there some indication about what that means in terms of height? Visually it will be different. I understand it's a positive net gain overall, but...
Yeah, so obviously with any replacement trees, it's not going to have an instant impact as you would have with a mature tree, but the highest one that we would generally say is heavy standard, which is about 5 metres generally, depending on the species.
And my understanding is that carbon capture from trees happens in the early part of their growth and becomes much less as they're mature.
Thank you, Chairman. My question was more around the aesthetics of it rather than the carbon side, which I think the project moves to very nicely, being electric, because we also should take away the damage that it will be avoided. Is it evaded? Anyway, by the closure of the old site.
Okay, Councillor North.
Going back to the acoustic barrier, according to 6.11, it's only on the south side, but 9.43 says it's surrounding the whole site, including the emergency exit. Which one is it?
I think we've been told it's only on the southern side.
Then we need to get that changed.
Okay, we can't we can't change the report. It's now been published, but it'd be good if it was right. Mr. Christian, do you want to come in?
There is a map within the acoustic report that shows where the barrier is.
Okay, colleagues, any more questions? No? Comments? Comments, and I'm happy to propose the officer's recommendation. Councillor Shah?
Thank you. Just a quick question, actually. How many parking bays will be there for the employees? Will there be enough or not?
There are 25. So how many people are you expecting to be there, Mr. Christian?
So it works quite neatly in that when the buses leave, the cars have more space to park. So the initial spaces cover for the initial buses leaving, and then as more employees arrive, they park in the space of the buses that have left, if that makes sense.
And you think that's going to be enough to cover everybody?
Well, you've got the whole site to park in.
So there should be no need for anybody to park off-site who works there? Okay. At which point I'll go back to my officer recommendation to propose. Councillor Candlish?
I'm happy to second, although there is one more small error to point out in 9.109, where it talks about the extent former news group building, which I think is now no longer extant.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So that's a proposal. Are there any other proposals? No? Okay, can I see those in favour of granting planning permission? Please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Edward, if you're not feeling grand, I think Ian is here to sub for you, and we hope you're feeling better soon. Okay, moving on to 58 to 60 Great Southsea Street. Now, let me just get there. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Goodbye. Russell, are you staying? Can we tempt you? Are you sure? If we sing? Ed, yep, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, yeah. So 58 to 60 Great Southsea Street, conversion to form 4 flats, including various external alterations. So that includes balconies, which is sort of the main point of contention for this application. That's why it was called in by Councillor Holder.
Who sends his apologies, he's on holiday with his family.
So, yeah, it's on the corner of Elm Street and Great Southsea Street. Falls within the Castle Road Conservation Area, but has no heritage designation itself. It's not locally listed or statutorily listed. As you can see, it's quite an attractive period building. It's got a lot of original features, we think. The only change from these photos is that the clay tiles on the rear elevation have been taken off in preparation for replacement with slate tiles, which we think, again, is an improvement. In this, you can see the balconies, which have been reduced in size following various objections. We think this addresses the privacy issues and the overlooking issues, subject to a condition requiring further privacy screening. We'll show you more in a second. So this is the side and rear elevation. Again, you can see the balconies there. There is a balcony at first, second and first floor level. This forms 4 flats, so the ground floor flat doesn't have a balcony. That's where the bike and bin storage would be sited. So here are the proposed alterations. You'll see the main change is a mansard roof extension to the top. So this is a sort of a juxtaposition. It's not trying to be pastiche. We think it's a good solution, and it's something that we've encouraged on different sites in the conservation area. The other change would be at ground floor level. You can see the shop front will be changed out to a more traditional residential style with some green glazed bricks at the sort of ground level. Again, we think that's quite a nice addition. The oriel windows would be retained, which we think preserves the conservation area's character. These are some renders of the balconies. Obviously, that's probably the most pertinent issue, so we thought we'd focus on those a bit. You can see there is potential for overlooking into the rear window of the next door property, and also this rear garden down here. So following some amendments, the agent provided these visuals which show that a 45-degree angle, which is something that building control planning will generally use as a tool to work out whether or not there's going to be a loss of privacy. The middle balcony was the main issue, being so close to this window here. That's been reduced now, so you can't effectively stand on the corner and look back into that window. Just another thing to mention as well, on the existing layout of the property, there is a fire escape at the rear, which I think has caused some problems to the neighbour before, with people standing on there and smoking habitually. So we actually think having more control over this by putting privacy screens in and such would be a betterment over the current situation, would give us more control over it. So just to go through some floor plans, this is the ground floor. You can see the access would be from Elm Street here, which gives you access to the bin stores and the bike store, and a shared laundry room as well, which would be handy. All of these flats meet the nationally described space standards. All habitable rooms have windows, which would provide outlook and ventilation. Similar layout on all of these flats, but you'll see the top 3 have these balconies. So yeah, you see the smaller balcony on this one, following our concerns about the privacy loss. And then on this one, you can see all 3 balconies in a bit better detail. But yeah, generally a similar layout on all 4 flats. Just some site visit photos. You can see the fire escape coming down here. That would obviously be replaced by the balconies and the extension. These garages here don't form part of the application site. There's no off-street parking proposed as part of this application, but we think it's a very sustainable location, and it's sort of compliant with Portsmouth Council's climate emergency declaration. So we think obviously providing cycle storage does mitigate that. And just some further site photos. Again, you can see the fire escape and you can see the rear window that we were concerned about. There is a roof light as well, which would be obscured by an extension to this parapet wall, and also privacy screening as required by condition. Just some aerial photos to give you a bit more context here. So this garden here is also a concern, mainly due to the rearwards facing balconies. It's sort of an oblique angle, so I don't think there's too much of a problem there, but there is always the sense of overlooking as well as a sort of real sense, a real situation of overlooking. So again, we think it's probably best to require further privacy screening that. Just another view. Yeah, just some context as well. This is Brewery House, which is a Portsmouth Council scheme. I think the agent has taken some design cues from this with the upwards and mansard extension. Again, we think it's a good solution. We think it's better than trying to replicate what's underneath it, and you know, which could appear pastiche. We think the solution on this site is slightly more elegant in that the roof rakes inwards a bit more, and there's dormers, which gives it a bit more interest. But obviously, different site. It's a lot slimmer on the frontage, so we don't want it to appear top heavy. And again, 42 to 44 Great Southsea Street. I don't think this one's been built out yet, but just a few doors up from the application site, and a similar approach been taken with a upward sort of metal-clad roof extension. Cool. Thank you. Any questions? Deputations?
We'll do deputations first, and then we'll get to questions then, Ed. So we have three deputations. So first of all, Ms. Lewis. Ms. Lewis, lovely. Thank you very much for coming, and the floor is yours.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
I'm speaking for myself as owner of 46 Castle Road, the little house next to in the images, and which is immediately south of 58 to 6th Street, Great Southsea Street. I'm also speaking on behalf of Mr. Raj Huti, owner of flat 50 Castle Road, which is to the immediate west of the 58 to 60. I'd like to say these properties, which he owns the whole freehold of, 48 to 52 Castle Road, are not townhouses, although they have been made to look as such, but they're flats. Whilst we are in favour of this interesting historic property being brought back into use, so we don't object to the conversion to flats, we nevertheless have reservations regarding some of the proposals. Regarding the front elevation, under the roof appearance impact assessment, it states the building in its original context has a close relationship with its neighbours. Not upsetting the balance between the two structures is key for the two designs to coexist. But the addition of a mansard roof would totally dwarf its neighbours and affect the balance of properties and streets seen in this part of Castle Road Conservation Area. It's been suggested that comparisons can be made to the recent conversion of the brewery Hambrook Street and impact upon its neighbours, but this is not a like-for-like comparison, as the surrounding properties in Hambrook Street are post-war buildings constructed after the bombing of most of the original Croxton town, which is a contrast to the area in question, where the majority of Georgian and Victorian properties remain. With regard to the rear elevations, we have grave concerns on the impact of not only the increased height with the addition of the mansard roof, but the addition of balconies to flats 2, 3 and 4. Whilst we realise that the outside space is often an expectation for flat dwellers, do the balconies need to be so intrusive? Why do they need to be open to both south and western aspects? Some attempt has been made to prevent overlooking into the bathroom of 46 Castle Road with the addition of screening as in document dated 23rd of May. In the committee report, under privacy overlooking and neighbouring amenity and under condition 3, the erection of screening is proposed to balconies 2, 3 and 4 to the west and south at a height of 1.8 metres to be installed prior to the first occupation. Could the screening not be installed as part of the initial construction? If the flats are sold prior to the first occupation, as is stated in conditions, it's possible that the new owners would not erect the screening, or else it would become an uncoordinated mismatch of ineffective screening. What guarantee is there that this will actually take place? The addition of planters are visually attractive, but unless maintained, will provide little privacy. You may be, and I hope you are aware, that planning permission was granted in April 2023 under application 23/00357/HOU for the erection of a roof terrace to the rear of 46 Castle Road. This property has no garden. As there was a likelihood of development at 5860 having some impact upon this, I've held off from going ahead with the construction of the roof terrace, and it can be seen from the CGI that the balconies would then be immediately overlooking the roof terrace in renders 1 and 2, with balcony 3 occupants then coming to face with occupants on the roof terrace. Mr. Hootie is equally concerned that the back of his property will suffer the same fate of noise, overlooking and loss of privacy, with an impact upon quality of life. The rear of the flat and garden at 50 Castle Road will be completely overlooked as the balconies are proposed, though little of the impact upon this property is shown in the drawings. Balcony renders 905 REV and elevations 505A do not detail the relationship of the balconies to the flat at 50 Castle Road, and hence the imposition they would place on the property, but anyone visiting the site, actually on the site, not looking from the street, would see the extremely close proximity of the 3 buildings. We both have the usual concerns that parking will become even more difficult with the addition of these flats, particularly as the parking permits for the area, as the committee report admits, are already oversubscribed. We also have concerns of the implications of the self-build penthouse apartment. Does this mean there may potentially be 2 different stages of development to contend with? And I believe a party wall agreement would be needed if the planning application is approved, particularly due to the age of 46 Castle Road and the vulnerability of its roof. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We have Sarah Roberts.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ed, who's here as case officer to introduce the application. My name is Sarah Roberts. I'm here as agent on behalf of Critchley Architecture and Design Limited, and following my deputation will be Mr. Pearce, who's speaking as applicant today. So we're here to speak in favour of the proposal and to provide our justification as to why we think the application should be approved. The latest issue of the National Planning Policy Framework was issued in December 2023, which specifically supports this type of development. It states it supports opportunities to use the airspace above existing residential and commercial properties for new homes. In particular, they should allow upward extensions where the development would be consistent with the prevailing height and form of neighbouring properties and the overall street scene. It is well designed and can maintain safe access and egress for occupiers. They should also allow mansard roof extensions on suitable properties. There have been 3 objections to this application, and since these have been submitted, we have worked with the case officer and conservation officer on design amendments to overcome the matters raised. These include one of the main topics, which is regards to the balconies. So the design has been produced in line with the secured by design standards, such as ensuring the balconies are not easy to climb from the outside. They cannot be accessed from either Elm Street or Great Southsea Street. The proposed balconies are actually an improvement on the existing situation. There is already a larger balcony and fire escape with ladder access, which abuts the neighbouring property. The design amendments have been made to reduce the scale of the balcony, and it has also been inset to move the existing balcony further away from the neighbour, as has been shown in the 45-degree rule, which concerns the overlooking and the right to light matters. The 3rd floor balcony has also since been amended so that it has a high-level parapet wall running the length of it, so it will not be possible to overlook the neighbouring property. As an inner-city environment, it is not possible to completely remove overlooking or security risks. For example, both properties are on the back of pavement line. However, we have put steps in place to ensure the risk is better than existing, not worse. Having the building occupied will also deter people from any breaking and entering. There have also been heritage concerns raised within the objection. So, as has been pointed out, the site is within the Castle Road Conservation Area. We've worked with the applicant, who has gone above and beyond to ensure that the design preserves and enhances its historic surroundings. The existing building is vacant and it is becoming dilapidated. We went through pre-application consultation with both the Planning Department and the Conservation Officer to ensure the proposals are sympathetic to enhance the area, and both are in support of the application presented in front of you. And to clarify one point, the work has already begun on planning permission, where we have removed the concrete tiles on the west flank wall, which we saw were unsympathetic to the conservation area, and they will be replaced with slate tiles. The design of the mansard roof is to juxtapose the building rather than designed as a pastiche, which, as has been pointed out, this is in keeping with other successful designs in the local area. In addition to this, and finally, as Portsmouth City Council cannot evidence a 5-year housing land supply, this proposal will also help meet the current shortfall of housing within the city. Thank you. I'll now hand over to the applicant, Mr. Pearce.
Mr. Chair, members, thank you for allowing me to speak. So yes, my name is Richard Pearce. I'm actually the Chief Executive of the King's Theatre. So I do have a great interest in beautiful buildings, which I think this building itself once was and could be again, and hence some of my interest why I originally purchased it. I just thought it would be helpful if I gave a little bit of background to myself. I'm not a property developer. So the reason that I bought this building is that as part of my role at the King's Theatre, I've moved back into the city from Havant, where I was residing, into Old Portsmouth. But I was looking for a place where both my 2 children and also my niece and nephew, who have come to live with me since their mother died 7 years ago, that I could look over them without actually looking after them. And I saw this as a great opportunity, very close to where I live. They could look out for one another. And having looked at the brewery, which was referenced around the corner, I thought that would make a great opportunity to make 4 separate units that they could all live in. I think, as Ed's already remarked, in terms of living space, I think the average space will be about 80 metres squared with these flats, which is sort of 33% above the minimum. And without having the mansard on there, that would limit that and mean that I had to bring 4 units down to something very close to the minimum. Given that the development is also for my family, but notwithstanding that I only think that they're worthy of it, I do think that outside space is very important, and hence the request to put an additional 2 balconies to the one which is there today. And I believe, with the help with Sarah, that we've created balconies which are more secure, more aesthetically pleasing, and rather than encouraging everyone just to use the one balcony, it will actually be better for the building. I guess, I was actually a little surprised with the objections that came in, given that I'd shared the plans with the neighbours and with the Castle Road community. So I've gone along to their meetings. I believe in being part of the community. In fact, they've got the Battle of Southsea reenactment on Sunday, and they're using the house for changing of the people who are participating in that. So I'm very keen that we become part of the community and my family becomes part of that community. Just one other thing in terms of, I think Sarah touched on it, replacing the tiles. What actually happened there, which is evidence of the building becoming dilapidated, is the tiles were falling down and deemed to be unsafe. So within 2 days, I erected scaffolding, took all the old tiles off, and now are looking to put back actually better materials which are agreeable with the council. And I'm kind of looking to do that as soon as possible, but we're kind of waiting for this planning to get agreed such that we can really kick on and bring the building back to something that I think it should be, because hopefully the pictures is evidence that it is getting a little bit dilapidated. And as Sarah and Ed have both mentioned, I am keen that we use the most sympathetic materials that bring the housing back into the way that it was. I think that's...
I think it'd be worth noting as well that you've only just taken ownership of the building.
Oh yeah, so, okay. I've only owned the building now for, well, just over a year. So, with the intention of doing something on this, but it's not as if I've been sitting on it, allowing it to get dilapidated. In fact, I've been doing whatever I can to not allow it to become more dilapidated.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, questions? Councillor Smythe.
Can we be reassured that the screening in the balconies, where that's necessary, would be in fact installed by the developer before the occupation of any of the units, just to get that concern that was expressed about
Ed?
that out of the way?
Yeah, so it's a 2-part condition, so details would need to be submitted to us prior to occupation, and also they would need to be installed prior to occupation. If they're not, then we have planning enforcement to issue breach of condition notices or whatever's appropriate.
Okay. Any other questions, colleagues? Councillor Mason.
The mansard roof, I'm pleased to see that it is set back, but what are the materials of that mansard roof, and do they match the tiling which is being affixed to the back of the building?
Edward? Ed?
Yeah, so it's going to be a metal cladding similar to what we saw at the brewery. And yeah, it's going to be a sort of dark grey slatey colour, so it would match quite nicely with the slates.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, comments? Have to propose the officer recommendation. In terms of the points raised by Avril Lewis, there'll have to be a party wall agreement that will have to take place, have to be brought in, but that's a building regulations thing. It's not for us to do, but it has to be done together, and I'm sure that the conversations between the owners and the next door neighbours, but that's a building control thing. Is that right, Ed?
It's a private matter.
Okay. Okay, colleagues, I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation. Is there a seconder? Councillor North. Thank you very much indeed. Are there any other proposals? No. Can I see those in favour of granting planning permission? Okay, I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. So planning permission is granted. Thank you very much indeed for coming. Okay, we go on to the next item, which was deferred from the last meeting, which is 208 Chichester Road. Ian, thank you very much for stepping in. We had slight issues to begin with in terms of lack of Wi-Fi, but I think we've managed to cope so far. My understanding is that the reason we deferred this last time was concern about the layout of the communal area. So that's, colleagues, the bit that we will need to concentrate on today, because we've looked at the rest of it. Ian, are you up, ready, happy and willing?
None of the above, but we'll have a go. Good afternoon, members. For record, I'm Ian Maguire, the Assistant Director for Planning and Economic Growth. So 208 Chichester Road, which hopefully will appear as if by magic on the screen behind me, change of use from a dwelling house, Class C3, to a 7-bed HMO. I'll run through the presentation very quickly, but as the Chair has said, it's the layout of the communal area, which I think is the ground for deferral and the only concern previously raised. There is the property. It's in an area, a few other HMOs for about 5.4% with our mix. There is, for what it's worth, the existing building. There is the proposed. Here is the proposed layout. You'll have seen this in the previous committee. What we're looking at, as I say, in particular, is the kitchen layout. Some confusion because there's a range of plans in the papers, but I'll draw your attention to the SMAT, where there's a few things in there, but also a replacement page, I think 59 and 60, showing the correct layout. So that is the proposed layout, or if you prefer, that's the more detailed illustration thereof. It is the one on the right we're looking at. So they've flipped over that peninsula, removed the side single door, so access is taken through the rear. So you've got a straight shot through the kitchen area and into the communal area and out the rear doors as a layout, and obviously all the necessary space required for the kitchen of this size. The size is, of course, compliant with our space standards, and that layout, we are satisfied, demonstrates an adequate, appropriate, and is certainly not dissimilar to many other layouts we've seen on similar HMOs. I don't know what else I've got.
Ian, could you just stop? Could you go back one?
Yeah, sure.
What do those two sets of 4 dots indicate on the right hand? Are they?
I would imagine they are
skylights.
Spots, looking at
the
annotations, I imagine they're spotlights in the ceiling. Yeah. Obviously, that right-hand drawing, the degree of specificity, and that is ridiculously more than you need as a planning authority. It's none of your business where they put their hobs, to be honest, and where they put your spotlights. That is a matter at best for building control and for licensing, not for the planning authority. But obviously, it was a concern for the general issues of layout. Those key matters that are pertinent to planning, the access doors, the circulation through the room are obviously well illustrated by this degree of kitchen layout details as well, as I say, and it's that access and circulation which is clearly acceptable from that drawing, and consequently the officer's recommendation is to grant planning permission.
Thank you very much indeed. So, Councillor Dent, welcome. The floor is yours.
As we're only sticking to the one part of it, basically, yes, it has changed a little bit, but the communal area, kitchen area, whatever you want to call it, is still really small. If you look at on page 59, which Ian's got up there at the moment, the space that they've got as a communal area is 7.2 square metres, which is tiny. So, yeah. I will stick to that and not go with all the rest of the bits and pieces I've written down. I will stick to the rules. Chair, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And Carrie-Anne Wells, welcome.
Thank you. So, as you've already said, this application was deferred from the June committee just to look at the kitchen layout. Some members did not like it, and whilst this is in planning consideration, we've made changes to show the actual kitchen that will be installed. This has been designed in accordance with licensing requirements. I feel it's important to stress that although we give an idea of how the kitchen could look on planning drawings, this is open to change, as all kitchen designs are strictly designed to fulfil a number of housing standard requirements, taking into account the number of cupboards, worktop space, and even the consideration of how many sockets are available. If landlords are not aware of these requirements, then the HMO licence would not be issued. I feel that sometimes there's a lot of discussion amongst members about hypothetical kitchen layouts within this committee, and I wanted to assure you today that upon inspection by private sector housing, if the kitchen is not suitable, then it would not be licensed. So we've removed the door to the side in order to allow more space for the kitchen units. I've read through this, Matt, and I know Councillor Swan has made quite a detailed representation, and just wanted to comment to a couple of things on that. So he states that the area does not meet the 22.5 square metres required. It's not clear why, because this is not the case. The room is rectangular, fully usable, and is actually wider than a lot of communal areas that you see at committee. Comments have been made regarding the design of the kitchen. Again, this has been designed to fulfil all of the licensing requirements. Councillor Swan also raises concerns about cycles moving through the area. If Councillor Swan had paid as much attention to the application as a whole as he has to the kitchen, he would be aware that there is rear access to this property, so cycles do not have to move through this space. I respectfully ask that you now approve this fully compliant application and save our client further delay. Thank you.
Karen, through the officer, can I ask you, in the drawing that was shown at one point, there was a roof light into the kitchen. Is there a roof light in the current design? Because I know there was a concern about lack of light in this in the communal area. There is a roof light. No, okay, thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, any questions? Okay, thank you very much indeed. Any comments? Personally, I think this is a much better design, and it's good to have got more natural light in it. It seems to flow better. So I'm happy to propose officer recommendation on this. Colleagues, is there a seconder? Councillor Vallely. Are there any other proposals? No. Can I see those in favour of granting planning application? Thank you very much indeed. Those against? And those abstaining? Thank you very much indeed. Planning permission is granted. Thank you. Let's move on to 270 Laburnum Grove.
Thank you. 270 Laburnum Grove. This is a change of use again from a C2 dwelling house to a 7-bed HMO. There is the property. Again, not a significant number of HMOs in the local area. We're at 5.56% HMO mix with this scheme. There's existing floor plans, existing issues, more importantly, proposed floor plans. So as you would expect to see, a number of permitted development alterations, so a rear extension and works to the roof, creating the 7 bedrooms. I would again draw your attention to the SMAT, where we have some additional information, including another late letter from Councillor Swan. Nothing within that changes the recommendation. However, pass me this map. Yeah. Fundamentally, an application fully compliant with our policy with a recommendation to approve.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Dent.
Press the right button. Thank you, Chair. I won't go through the normal procedure of basically the residents complaining about the parking situation, the sewerage situation, and everything else that normally comes up that you don't take into consideration. But bedrooms 1, 2, and 4, usable space. By the time you cannot put anything behind the doorways into them because you've got a doorway into the ensuite. So roughly you're losing about 1.2 to 2 square metres of floor space in each of those 3 rooms, which takes it below the standard. And I'll leave it with you to discuss that one. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Carry on. Carry on Wells, I should say, sorry.
Thank you.
Should not be informal.
Okay, so again, this scheme, all bedrooms range from 10 square metres to 12.5 square metres. The required communal area when all bedrooms exceed 10 square metres is 22.5. This property's got 30.76, but with the benefit of an additional laundry room. This totals over 34 square metres, which significantly exceeds that requirement. All of the bedrooms benefit from an ensuite with an additional WC at ground floor for the comfort of the residents. The spacious communal area also has a benefit of a large roof lantern, which again provides additional light. In response to a couple of the comments with regards to doorways, private sector housing would licence these rooms. We wouldn't design them if they weren't licensed. There has to be a doorway into the room and a doorway into the ensuite. And the other way around, that would be not providing them an ensuite and a doorway into it, and therefore give them more wall space but no ensuite. And I'll let you decide which the tenants would prefer in that case. Having read through Councillor Swan's comments for committee as well, again, quite comprehensive comments, I just wanted to say that cycles regularly travel through his houses in Portsmouth, and not every house has the luxury of side or rear access. In regards to light issues that he mentions to bed 2 and 4, bed 4 is an existing bedroom with a large window, and we've amended the plans to provide bed 2 with a full-length window for additional light within that room. Comments he makes, derogatory comments towards the size of the laundry, but again, this is an additional to communal area, and we always find that tenants like to have a laundry room within the property. It keeps the sort of washing facilities separate. He mentions about the WC in there and there not being wash basins. Well, I can say we haven't shown a wash basin on those planning drawings. There will be a requirement to be a wash basin within there and wouldn't receive a licence without that. That's it from me, really. The application fully complies with policy PCS 17, PCS 20 and PCS 23 of the local plan and is fully compliant, so I trust that you recommend this for approval today. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We're on questions. I'm going to start from myself, if that's possible. On page 83, 8.12 is the chart about room sizes. Can I ask, Ian, my understanding is that the room size can be below 10 square metres, but if so, then there needs to be more communal space. Is that correct?
Yes, we structure it the other way round in our structure. Where they are abnormally large rooms,
Yeah.
you can have smaller communal space, but same logic either way. Yeah.
So I think from memory, the basic size is 6.7 or something of that ilk, at which point you then have to provide a larger communal space.
6.51 is the minimum size for a bedroom, and if they're all that size, then the logic underpins that. And it's the key thing. We're not doing planning by numbers. The key thing is that's big enough for a bedroom, but it won't give you any additional space to recreate, to sit in a chair or whatever. So you need a full 34 square metres of communal space if all you can do in your bedroom is sleep and get dressed. For larger bedrooms, defined as over 10 square metres, you've obviously you can close your door and sit there quietly yourself in a more comfortable space, and consequently the reduced 22.5 square metre is allowed.
Okay. Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, any other questions? Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? No? Okay. In terms, we then move to comments. Is there a proposal? I'm happy to propose that this gets planning permission with the officer in terms of the officer recommendation, as it appears to be compliant. Councillor Smythe.
I just have a small comment. I mean, I think we're right to be very vigilant about the actual usable spaces in the bedrooms. I think in this case, they've just about got it right. The little bit of corridor in bedroom 5, there could be some storage provided at a high level above the bathroom door, but it isn't, in my mind, so bad as sometimes when we have found a need to refuse those applications because of usable space. So I would second your recommendation.
And bedroom 5 is, I think, 12.54 anyway, so it would be, even if you take that bit into consideration, it would still fit. Yeah. So there's a proposal with a seconder. Are there any other proposals? Councillor Candlish, do you want to make a proposal?
No, I thought you were absent a second and I was going to second, but I realised that that role has already been taken.
And very ably too. Are there any other proposals? No. Can I see all those in favour of the application, please show. Those against, please show. Those abstaining, please show. Thank you very much indeed. That is, planning permission is granted. Thank you. Let's move on to number 9, Chichester Road.
Thank you, Chair. 9 Chichester Road, again, change of use from a C3 dwelling house to a 7-bed HMO. There is our property. Again, not a significant number of HMOs in the area, so we're at 3.03% within the relevant search area. Existing floor plans, more pertinently as always, proposed floor plans. The fully compliant with all of our standards, so happy to make a positive recommendation for it. I would say it does have an extant permission for C4 use. It's currently not yet been implemented, we understand, so hence it is a change of use from C3. I would draw members' attention to the long corridor into bedroom 5 in this site, which obviously gives you a very large number officially for that room, but obviously it has some reduced utility in its space. Consequently, we have in the paragraph in the table under 5.9 measured the room excluding that corridor, and one could argue they could probably be given credit for some of it, but we've excluded the entire corridor and it is still over 10 square metres. Consequently, we remain satisfied that it is all entirely compliant with policy. I would draw your attention to the SMAP. We do have additional comments, which include an appendix from Councillors Hunt and Adair. We don't yet have the legal agreements. We've had to tweak the recommendation slightly just to say it is subject to receiving the necessary legal agreement. We've got no concerns about getting that in, but just making sure that everything is done properly. That is a delegated authority to grant permission subject to that legal agreement as a recommendation, and obviously happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Deputation from Carrie-Anne Wells.
Okay, again, this one, all bedrooms meet or exceed 10 square metres. The bedrooms range from 10 to 14.5 on this one. The required communal area, again, when bedrooms meet the 10 square metres, is 22.5, and this property provides 22.9 of floor area, which meets that requirement. This application fully complies with policy PCS 17, PCS 20 and PCS 23 of the local plan, and also complies with the Housing Multiple Occupation Supplementary Planning document. I also wanted to draw your attention, as Ian has already, that this already has C4 planning permission, so that's the fallback position available to the applicant. In reality today, you're only considering the addition of one additional person to this property. Thank you.
Okay, questions, colleagues? Councillor Smythe.
Last planning committee we had quite a discussion about what matters could be taken into account when determining these planning applications. And there's a fairly short list of planning matters that we can take into account. There are some other things that we can't. And we asked for some consistency and clarity about what is said in the report. page 92 of the report, and I believe this is the case for one of the other applications too, unhelpfully has, under paragraph 5.1, the main issues for consideration in the determination of the application are as follows, and they're absolutely fine until you get to a sort of strange catch-all comment at the bottom, other matters raised in the representations. I think in future it would be helpful to put other planning matters raised in the representations, because we have, we wanted to make very clear to applicants and to the public and to people concerned about such applications what are the planning considerations we want to take into account. I just wanted to raise that and ask if that could be changed in the future to have consistency and make it very clear as to what we are allowed to take into account and allowed not to take into account. Thank you.
To respond, I would draw members' attention to paragraphs 524 to 528, where that clarity is provided.
I understand that, yes. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Ashmore.
Following on in the same vein as Councillor Smythe there, when it's talking about the main issues for consideration in the determination here, are all of these things on, I'm probably asking you, Ian, are all of these things here the things that we can consider? Because I've always been under the impression that we can't consider parking as a material planning concern at this committee. So, but it's in that list.
Yeah, absolutely, parking is a material planning consideration. Almost everything is a material planning consideration. As members will recall from my annual training, there is a small list that the courts have assisted with over the years of what are not specifically material, and one that becomes most pertinently up, I would say, to this committee for this sort of consideration are matters addressed under other regulatory regimes. So I'd draw your attention as examples to 526 and 527 of the report, where two such matters are highlighted as not being material to this case. But otherwise, everything is parking. Parking is absolutely, and no one's ever told you that it's not material to these considerations. The pertinent matters are when we evaluate under our adopted guidance for parking, the likely parking demand and thus associated adverse impacts from a dwelling and an HMO. Effectively, you get to a fraction of an additional space, if that. So consequently, it is not a justified reason to withhold plan permission. If a new use had substantially more parking demand and we didn't have a compelling case in place to ensure we can reduce that parking demand through a travel plan or active and sustainable transport, the things we want to do, then we would be able to potentially consider whether planning permission should be withheld due to placing a lot of cars off-site and adverse implications that may bring. In this case, the existing C3 dwelling house and the proposed 7-bed HMO have, with all effective purposes, the same parking demand, and consequently the adverse implications of some additional parking in the area are nowhere near enough to warrant refusal of planning permission, especially when put in light of the balancing exercise and the tilted balance for the provision of additional housing stock and accommodation within the city.
Councillor Ashmore, are you happy?
That's a philosophical question, but thank you for the answer for that particular one here.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, comments? Can I see a proposal? It seems to me that we may not like HMOs, but this is entirely compliant with what our policy is and what we're allowed to do. If we were on Fareham, Havant or Gosport, this wouldn't have even needed planning permission. It would just go through but we're stricter in Portsmouth than other places. But this is compliant with our policies, and therefore I can't see a reason for us to say no. So I'm happy to propose. Well, I will propose the officer recommendation. Councillor Shaw, are you seconding that? You are. Are there any other proposals? No. Can I see those in favour of granting planning permission? Please show. Can I see those against? Please show. Can I see those abstaining? Please show. Thank you. That's 703. Planning permission is granted. Okay, moving on to 60 Margate Road. So
16 Margate Road. So this is an application for the change of use from an existing house of multiple occupation, so it could have up to 6 people living here, to an 8-bed house of multiple occupation. Consequently, and looking at the individual merits of the case, officers are of the firm opinion that plan permission is not required for this change of use. If members come to a different conclusion, they should obviously express the reasons why before then going on to assess the individual planning merits. Should that happen, to save us time, individual planning merits would note that obviously this is an area that is already, let's take you through, substantially made up of HMOs. Members will not recognise this illustration as different. We are looking to improve and enhance our reporting tools from HMOs to reduce the amount of manual interrogation required. So this is what they'll likely look like in the future. For clarification, as no key has been provided to this drawing, the large red shaded circle is the 50-metre search radius from the relevant property. Each blue dot represents a residential property, whether in C3 use or in HMO use. The thick black circles provide details of where HMOs are, and the brown and yellow circles are other uses. From recollection, though I will just check with officers, the brown are parent models, so they have more than one property underneath them, and yellow I think might be commercial or other land uses. So you can see the mix here. We have quite a few HMOs within that 50-metre red circle. It's about 24 and something %. So we are an area of notable saturation already, but of course this application doesn't increase the number of HMOs, just increases the occupation by 2 through the use of permitted development alterations, which you can see in elevation there, and in plan form somewhere. Do we have a plan? Is that plans? They don't appear to be the correct plans. In plan form on page 91 of your papers. So, am I in the right application? Let me just check. Yeah. Sorry, bear with me. There we go. No, they were the right plans. Yeah, there we go. So in plan form there, the application does meet all of our room sizes as are detailed in the table at para 5.7 of the report, and happy to take any questions.
Initially, can I put a proposal that this does need planning permission? This is a small house, and this is a 25% increase in the number of people using it in an area of very high numbers of HMOs, where we know that there are records of significant problems with antisocial behaviour and rubbish, and that the records show that HMOs create more of these complaints than other sorts of housing. So it is clearly development and therefore would need planning permission. Could I have a seconder for that proposal?
Can we just go with Ms. Carrie-Anne Wells out, I think, for a deputation?
No, that doesn't. If it doesn't need planning permission, then we don't go any further.
She wants to make a deputation.
Yeah, but
She should make a deputation first.
because if it doesn't need planning permission, then it just goes through and then nothing happens.
No, the deputation comes after the officers for a presentation.
Okay. Carrie-Anne.
Okay, so this is, I just want to stress this is an existing HMO. So I do feel it's important to say that there's no additional increased HMO density with this property, increasing with 2 additional occupants. This has been used as a reason for refusal many times and has been one appeal more than a handful of occasions. All bedrooms meet or exceed 10 square metres, and the rooms in this property are particularly spacious for student properties in Southsea. The required communal area should be 22.5 in this case, and in this case it's 30.28. So again, spacious for student property in this area. For 8 persons, the minimum sanitary provision would be 2 shower rooms and additional WC, and this property provides 3 shower rooms and a WC, which exceeds that requirement. This property is a student property and the owners have a large student-let portfolio. The offices are based in Portsmouth and they also offer employment opportunities to local people. All of their properties are managed and maintained in-house and any issues are promptly dealt with. Rear access to the property with secure cycle storage offers an easier prospect for students who may use cycles as a mode of transport. This application is fully compliant with policy PCS 17, PCS 20 and PCS 23 of the local plan and also complies with Housing Multiple Occupation Supplementary Planning document. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Carrie-Anne. Juliet, could you read back my proposal in terms of planning not needing planning application?
I haven't got the details, Gerald.
Okay, I'll see if I can remember. I can see if I can remember, or can colleagues remember from what I said before? Okay.
You talked about the saturation, from what I recall.
Yes, of course you can, Councillor Smythe.
The change in occupation as a matter of planning judgment, fact and degree in this specific case results in a material change of use requiring planning permission because of the intensification of use, the effect on the amenity in the street, and I think that would do.
So I think the bit that I think is really important is we have a lot of complaints in that area, particularly that road, about the problems of antisocial behaviour, particularly rubbish, and particularly landlords throwing out furniture at the end of each year.
But
we have
those are not changed by one person extra.
This is 2 people, and it's 25% extra. So, and we know from all the research here that there are more complaints about antisocial behaviour and more complaints about rubbish and fly tipping from HMOs than from other properties.
Yes, I can't help you further then because I was trying to.
Okay, so in which case, then let me go back to my proposal, which is it does need planning permission because of the 25% increase in the number of occupants in this property, and that the potential of negative effect on the amenity of their neighbours because potential extra antisocial behaviour and rubbish caused by over-intensification use.
I think I covered those things. I don't mind though.
Okay, so colleagues, do you think this needs planning permission? So can I see those who do think it needs to have planning permission, please show. Thank you. And those who don't think it needs planning permission, please show. And people who are abstaining. Thank you very much indeed. So it does need planning permission. Okay, any questions, colleagues? I have a question, Ian. In terms of the table in 5.7 on page 102, have we used the same principle in terms of the size of room required as on the previous application?
Yes, that's a universal principle. Apologies. The standard presentation of this table is we will be writing 10 square metres as the required
thought
issue,
so.
as you've seen all the others. So apologies around that.
No,
We'll
no,
speak
it's
to
just,
case officers.
it is useful if there's a consistency, but I don't think it changes anything. Colleagues, any questions, colleagues? No. Colleagues, this is. I'm happy to move the officer well, it's not the officer recommendation, it's the recommendation to give planning permission with the standard set of conditions in terms of time limit for construction, approval of plans, water efficiency, cycle storage, waste storage, external alterations, and a legal agreement also needs to do financial contribution for mitigating the impact of the SPA. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dorrington or Councillor Candlish, either bearded man. Councillor Candlish, for the record, I think it's you.
Chair, I had tried to squeeze in a comment, which was simply to say that I was going to agree with the direction you were going on because I can see no basis for us to be able to refuse it, and that we have recently received refusals come back from the planning inspectorate where we've had weak grounds for going so, and I think it is wrong for us to put costs onto the local residents by advancing things where we know there is very little chance of it succeeding or defending an appeal. And therefore, I would have been happy to second, but my colleague has beaten me to the punch.
Thank you. Colleagues, I've asked...
Members, before you vote, so Gerald gave you a list of condition titles. I'm not sure the merit or purpose of all of them. Obviously, our standard conditions are necessary, are laid out in 6.2, time limits, approved plans, water efficiency, and obviously the associated legal agreement. Whether this requirement, this site needs a condition for cycle store, I believe there is already a cycle store there to the rear, has rear access, this one. Whether it needs a condition for bin storage, it will be in the front. I'm not sure what you'll want from these conditions. And you mentioned external alterations. I believe the permitted development works have already been done in this case, and consequently no further external alterations are required.
Okay.
So I'm not sure the merit of those three conditions.
Okay, I'm just reading off a list I was given. So in terms of waste storage, I think this is a flat-fronted property, isn't it? Where's the
It has a front yard.
It has a front yard, so that's where the bins
If we can put
normally
the
go. Okay.
images on the screen, please. Yeah.
Can I just check with the officer, is an appropriate assessment being done?
Yes, it has. Yeah.
Okay, so we can see bins in the front courtyard, and there is currently a cycle storage as well. Okay, so those two are done. And external alterations are PD rights.
From that rear extension and indeed the fit out, you can see internally it does appear all external alterations have already been carried out, and consequently
Okay.
that condition would be required.
Okay, so the ones we need: time limit, approval of plans, water efficiency, and a legal agreement about the SPA. Yeah. Okay, colleagues, with those conditions, Councillor Candlish.
Chair, I hit the button faster this time. I'm happy to second it with the revised list of conditions.
We'll leave it as a fight between the two of you. Okay, can I see those in favour of granting planning permission, please show. Can I see those against granting planning permission, please show, and those abstaining, please show. So that's 703. Thank you, planning permission is granted. Our final application today is 19 Powers Court Road.
Members, thank you. 19 Powers Close, change the use of a 7-bed HMO to an 8-bed HMO. There is the property, so an existing 7-bed in an area with not too many other HMOs. I think we're just under 3% mix. There is the existing plans. You'll see on the second floor, the far right of this image, a storage room, which is the front room served by 2 Velux windows, and that changes to bedroom 8. You'll also see bottom left of the left-hand drawing here a change to the aperture and design of the light well, which provides light to the basement communal living spaces. I draw your attention to the SMAT, some additional objections in there and some comments from Councillor Hunt and Adair. I would also, with profound apologies, have to supplement the SMAT with a verbal addition. Additional history hasn't been included within the report, so that's apologies and oversight from the planning service. The current 7-bed use has a condition limiting it to 7 occupants. An application has previously been considered and dismissed on appeal for 8 occupants. Part of the reasoning for that was that it was considered at that point the front bedroom 1, as you see on this drawing, was a lounge, and the application then proposed to convert the lounge into a bedroom. So in this case, somewhat confusingly, that's already happened because they don't need planning permission to move their furniture around. But the concern raised by the inspector at the time was the amount of light, natural light, going into that ground floor basement living space. A not unreasonable concern, but one that's not supported by private sector housing, who have licensed this 7-bed, or I should say, this 7-bed HMO, the one that's there at the moment, with that ground floor living space with the 3 bedrooms on the ground floor, so that subterranean living space, the 3 bedrooms on the ground floor, the 2 bedrooms on the first floor, and 1 bedroom and 1 storage room on the second floor. That is the current licensing situation. So it is the quality of the bedroom on the second floor, which is a primary concern, and whether one additional person in that communal space in the basement makes a material detriment, should plan permission be required. Must stress, plan permission is not required in the professional advice of your officers. We would note the applicant has an intent to amend that basement light well. There's a light at the back as well, but I'll just take you through the images for that. That's probably not particularly helpful. That's the existing basement looking back towards the small window to the rear and the access door that comes down some steps, and that is the existing light well to the front. It is quite small, as you can see there. Their proposal is to enlarge it, taking it from that single flat-fronted one to dig out a big light well and provide 3 lights around it, move the bins, etc., back to the other side of the front forecourt so that there is increased natural light. So that already has planning permission in 2023, so that work hasn't been done yet, but that is the applicant's intent. So we are satisfied that planning permission is not required for the change of use. If members come to a different conclusion and they feel that planning permission is required, they may well want to allow it with a condition that these works are undertaken if they feel that this is a necessary improvement, but I won't jump too far down that rabbit hole until members have considered the first point of whether plan permission is required. I think that's probably the only things to flag from the SMAT. Other than that, all the material considerations are laid out in the report. Thank you, Ian. There are no deputations on this application. Colleagues, my view is this does need planning permission, particularly because an appeal to increase the number of people from 7 to 8 was upheld. But I think that Ian is correct that if we do this, and again, this is an area with very significant pressure for parking and in terms of rubbish in the area, antisocial behaviour caused by waste. We do need to include a condition that this light well is created, because I have to say, looking at that photograph of the troglodyte living that is expected of people with a tiny porthole, it was not good. And that if they're going to make this better, that would be significantly to the benefit of the residents. But I think the first thing we have to decide is, does this need planning permission? And my view is it does. And I'm happy to propose that it does. Councillor Shah, are you happy to second that? Thank you. Colleagues, can I see those in favour of it needing planning permission, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you. Ian, apologies, Chair, I'm not sure you gave a reason for why. Okay, so the pressure of parking, the pressure of antisocial behaviour, particularly environmental antisocial behaviour, that is caused by an increase in numbers of people in this very densely populated area. Okay. Any questions, colleagues? Councillor Smythe.
Top of page 110, there are the table, the usual table we get. Not all the bedrooms have got ensuite. I realise that's allowed, but I can't tell from the plans we have in front of us. It'd be helpful to see the larger plans, where, for example, bedroom 4 is going to enjoy ablutions.
So, Councillor Smythe, on my copies of the papers, page 113 and 114 have larger plans, which and there is a communal bathroom on the second floor between bedrooms 7 and 8.
Yes.
And a communal bathroom on the ground floor in front of bedroom 3.
Okay.
Yes.
So that is where people resident in the person who lives in bedroom 4 would use one of those 2 communal bathrooms.
So they'll either have to go downstairs or upstairs. Okay.
As happens to many of us.
Yes, it does. Fine.
Councillor Smythe, any other question?
Well, the other question was, is it, we were guided to be able to put on an additional condition about getting the work done that's already got planning permission to give a greater light ingress into the ground floor kitchen. Would we be able to do that?
Yeah, it's very sensible to put that in as a condition, I'd have thought.
Yes, so say having concluded plan permission is required. So there is always a question of necessity. If members are satisfied that it does pass that legal test, then the condition can be imposed.
Okay. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Shah, are you wanting a question, or are you buying a picture for £1 million or just scratching out? You might have bought a Van Gogh for that or something. Okay. Then comments, ladies and gentlemen. Councillor Mason.
The room sizes, if we look at bedroom 7, it is down as low as 8.5 square metres. It's essential, therefore, if the bedrooms are that small, that you have good communal facilities. And I think that we should not allow this to move to 8 bedrooms until such time as the works which have already been approved for the greater light coming into the basement are complete.
So I think that's an issue of the condition, is it not, Ian? So if we put a condition on that it can only be occupied by people once that work has been completed, then we tie the two things together. Is that correct, Ian?
Yes, to be comprehensive, the conditions one would assume you wish to impose in granting this scheme, having a clear plan permission required, is the time limit, the approved plans, the water efficiency, the associated legal agreement. And in this case, because they're obviously having to move where they're doing their cyclone waste storage, and I'll just switch through to that plan again so you can see it, you would put on, as you can see from the right-hand image, they've got a cycle store and obviously laying out that waste store, so all of that would need
and it
conditioning.
hasn't appeared on my screen.
On the right-hand image, you'll see, so there's a cycle store and they show where they're going to put the bins in the front there, so you would put on a condition that says prior to the occupation by more than 7 people, that cycle store will be built, that bin store will be laid out, and that light well and the alterations as approved under Plan Permission 23 shall be carried out and thereafter retained in accordance with those plans. So 1 or 3 conditions, depending on how best to draft it, you can leave that with us, would deal with those matters. So they would be the conditions I anticipate one would wish to impose on a grant of plan permission here.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Any proposals? It seems to me this is a compliant application. Personally, I think expecting people to live in a subterranean thing is not ideal by any means. But if it's already got planning permission for this and licensing, then we have no legs to stand on. Therefore, I don't think we have any option but to grant planning permission with the conditions as proposed by Ian. Could I see a seconder? Councillor Mason. Are there any other proposals? Okay, can I see those in favour of the application, please show. Can I see those against, please show. And can I see those in abstaining, please show. That's 713. Okay, thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes this meeting of the Planning Committee. Thank you very much indeed for your attendance.